Peter, thanks for joining us today. You just spoke about evidence-based policy and things of that nature in a session. And federal conservatives in Canada over the last few years have earned a reputation from their critics, including some journalists, as not being all in favor, at least openly in favor of evidence-based policy. But you just spoke about that for quite a bit of time. Can you talk about being a conservative and speaking a lot about evidence-based policy at in your case, largely at the council level in Calgary?
Yeah, I think with municipalities there isn't really a liberal or a conservative or a libertarian position on most of these issues. Really it comes down to what works at a city level, and that's going to really depend on the city and the particular issues in those places. So the kind of research and reports that we do really look at the stats. We do a lot of data work, a lot of analysis, and we really want to pull out objective information, objective data, because we publish our reports publicly, we publish all our data, all our sources, and people can come in with their own subjective analysis and apply their own thinking to it. But we want to get the information out there in a really accessible way and allow people to come to their own conclusions. I think we've found some pretty interesting conclusions across a wide variety of different issues. So,
sure. In Calgary, I mean, you have Manning in your name, and you're talking about being objective. Do people on council and in the city's administration, do they treat you as sort of as a force worth listening to?
Yeah, well, we have there's the Manning Centre in Calgary, which is the more political wing, and it's a non-profit that does that political activism. But at the Manning Foundation, we're a charity, and so we have strict rules around the kind of work we can do. We basically have to be objective. That's part of the rules. We can't put a political spin on it. And so that's why we really do focus on that data side. And I think maybe there was a bit of skepticism from some of the councillors when we started, because they thought, well, it is the Manning name, and so there's going to be a particular perspective coming from that. But I think over time, as we've released different reports and we've taken positions, and sometimes the positions have surprised different councillors from across the spectrum, they've come to realise that we really do mean it when we say that we're focused on the data and we're focused on what that shows. So whether that means finding policies that can improve cycling without hurting motorists, or working with different councils on different issues. We've had left-wing councillors talk about free market issues and come out in favour of some of our reports. We've had conservatives oppose some of the things we've been suggesting. So I think that proves that actually we're doing our job correctly, we are being as objective as we can. And if we're getting the information out there, then people can go on the website, they can look at it themselves and come to their own conclusion, as I hope the councillors have as well.
Sure. Does work like yours get done at a lot of major cities in Canada?
There are other very good think tanks in Canada. Mostly they focus on the federal and the provincial level. Mm-hmm. Some of them do reports on municipal issues, although that's often how provincial rules affect cities and how they interact with each other. And then obviously some issues are naturally more appropriate to municipal, whether that be housing affordability, because that's the area that councils work in. But we're really the only group that is really focused on municipalities and is aiming a lot of our resources and our time and effort at those kinds of issues. We've spent the last year really focused on Calgary issues. A bit of a trial run, obviously. It's our home base, so it's easier for us to start out there. And we really want to work now on spreading out to other cities. Firstly, to be able to improve those cities and come up with new ideas for those cities. But also data becomes a lot more valuable when you have comparisons. So we could say that the Calgary Council meets in private 25% of the time. But if you don't know the percentages that other cities are meeting, that's kind of just a number. When we tell you that Ottawa is in private for 3% of the time, then suddenly you have some context.
Sure.
And if we can start adding 5, 6, 7, 10 different cities into that data set for this particular report, same for other issues, then it becomes a lot more valuable. The sum is greater than the parts, if you like. So we really want to focus on expanding out into other cities as well.
Right. And each of those cities will pose different challenges, right, as far as getting that data is concerned. Can you talk a bit about that and how it might be easier in some places, more difficult in others?
Absolutely. So we're not targeting necessarily just the largest cities. We've taken some time to look at how cities operate, how they publish data, what is available. And so we're targeting our own resources in a way. We're trying to be efficient with our resources in that we're focusing on cities where we can get the information in a clear, usable format, that we can publish ourselves, make sure so that anyone can go in and peer review and check the data themselves. And we want to be able to process it in an automated way where possible, so we don't have to have dozens of people sitting at computers doing it line by line from minutes of reports. In the cases where larger cities don't do that, we'd love to go to them and discuss with them and say, hey, look, this is a relatively minor change you can make on your end to ensure that your documents are laid out in a certain way and you're publishing in a certain format and there's a set of standards. And I think once we have that experience with a few of the cities that do those kind of things, we'll be in a position to go to those cities and say, hey, look, let's talk about this. Let's try and come up with some kind of standard, some kind of format that everyone can generally agree on that allows things to be done digitally. And that will obviously greatly help us with our research, but any other group in Canada that wants to be looking at these kind of things will be benefiting from those kind of changes, because obviously we want the public to be able to access as much information as possible. We know that turnout rates for council elections, for example, are very low. So the more we can get people interested in talking about these kinds of issues, following what the councillors are doing, what's going on at City Hall, the better for everyone.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
No problem. Great. Thank you.